أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. This is the month of Taqwa, the month of Ramadan. And Quran is a book which was revealed on the heart of the Prophet during this holy month. And I would like to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity to be able to go through the brief review of Surah Rahman with you in the Masumin community here. This will be the last session, inshallah. It's amazing that when the month of Ramadan starts, we always think, well, it's 2 long weeks that I have to come to Brampton every evening. But then you just see 1, 2, and before you realize, and this is what happens with the month of Ramadan. You know, we will have, inshallah, the major nights of Layali al-Qadr, and then everybody will be waiting for Eid. You know that the quiz sooner it comes. And so let us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to maximize the blessings of this month. And one is to get connected to the Quran and to be among Ahlul Quran in our practical life. The surah that we have looked into is a surah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts with His unique name Ar-Rahman, emphasizing His rahmah, and He enlisted many blessings. We'll just go through it very quick. The Quran as the first source of, as a main source of guidance for us. Creation, bayan, the intelligence capability, the sun, the moon, the herbs and the trees, the sky and the 3 mizans with it, the earth, the fruits and dates, grains and vegetables, and we go on to creation of man and jinn, mashriqain and maghribain, 2 sunrises and 2 sunsets, seas and rivers. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to this issue of mortality of human beings, that we are fani, we are not baqi, and our baqa depends on how we connect with the baqi, and that is wajhu rabbika dhul jalali wal ikram. And so that was the first part of the surah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the blessings in this dunya and the area surrounding it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, remember, you are not here forever. You are going to perish one day, and then there is a judgment after it. And so talking about judgment, we went through the various ayat dealing with the scenes of Jahannam, and then Jannat, and different levels of Jannat that we looked at it yesterday. And this is the continuation of the second part where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about Jannatan. And even in Jannatan, there were 2 and then 2 again, depending on the different levels that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about. One was for Ahlul Khawf, As-Sabiqun As-Sabiqun, Ulaika Humul Muqarrabun, and the second one basically can be referred to those who are known as Ashabul Yameen, those who will be handed their amal on the day of Qiyamah in the right hand. And that would be an indication that you are okay. Ashab al-Shimal are those who will be given their scrolls of deeds in their left hand, and that would be an indication that you are going the other side. And so, continuing with that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you remember yesterday in the ayat, He talked about the material, luxuries and good things for us. And then He even talked about the issues of hur. And to continue that, although in the earlier ayat, the words refer to the 2 jannats at 2 different levels, fihima. But here, the ayat that we are looking at now, ayat number 70, fihinna. It's a general statement about Jannat, the gardens of Jannat in general. that in them there will be khayratun hisan. Means the maidens who are khayrat, good, and hisan means lowly or good in a physical sense. Now again, repetition of the reward of companionship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not live the reward of the akhirah with only the physical, blessings. He also includes this issue of companionship as an important element of the ajr and thawab and reward that He is going to give to the good doers. Here also describing those women, two words have been used. Khayrat. This is not khayrat in the meaning of charity. This is plural of khayra, means a person who has khayr in their character. And so two descriptions are there. Khayrat, good character, referring to the khulq of those ladies. And hisan is from husn, referring to the physical beauty, to the khalq. And so Allah has covered both elements of those ladies, khulq as well as khalq, the character as well as physical beauty. And this is again an indication, as I had said yesterday in the ayat earlier that we looked at it yesterday, that husnul khulq comes before husnul khalq. It's just a difference of dhamma and fatha. Khalq is our physical dimension, khulq is our inner dimension. And what is important is the husn of khulq. That is the first. And so even in marriage relationship, when we talk about, and this is for the youths, when we talk about the issue of selection of spouse, it is husnul khulq which takes precedence over husnul khalq. There is a hadith from the Prophet where he says, if somebody marries a lady just for her beauty or her wealth, that's what he'll get at the end. But if the purpose is to look for husnul khulq, Allah will bless them with the beauty as well as with wealth. There are hadiths in the tafsir of this ayat, and remember yesterday I talked about this question, that whenever we talk about hurul ain, the ladies say this Quran is only for men. This is more a man, sided language used in the Quran. There's nothing about it. And this is where we have to realize that, the hadiths that we have from our imams under the tafsir of this particular ayat, فِيهِنَّ خَيْرَاتٌ حِصَانٌ. One hadith from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. He explains that this doesn't refer to hur. هن صوالح المؤمنات العارفات. This refers to the mu'mina, the ladies who were ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dunya, who were sawalih, who were good doers. And this is Allah's description for them when they will go into Jannat, that they will be khayrat, character-wise they will be good, and even physically they will be beautiful. Another hadith from the same Imam where he says, Al-khayrat al-hisan min nisai ahli dunya. This term, khayratun hisan, in this ayat refers to the women from this dunya who will go there. And after that, and this is for the men to realize, وَهُنَّ أَجْمَلُ مِنَ الْحُورِ الْعَيْنِ, and they will be more beautiful than the hurul ain of Jannah. So if you just think about hurul ain, you are losing there. This is what our sixth Imam is saying, that they will be more beautiful, elegant more than the hurul ain. According to some of the narrations that when these mu'minat will enter the paradise, even the hurul ain will be in shock to see that, they are of a higher level in all dimensions. And this is where we come to this point, that the question about, why does Quran talk more about hurul ain? You see, the concept of zawjiyat and companionship as one of the rewards in the akhirah, This is a common issue. It is for men as well as for women. And even if you look at the words zawj and azwaj, you see we use two different words. We say zawj and zawja. Zawja is for wife. Zawj is for normally for husband. But in Arabic language, the word zawj can be applied to both genders. And therefore, if you look at the plural, we don't say, for example, to the wives of the Prophet, we don't say zawajatun nabi. We don't use the plural of zawja. We use the plural of zawj, azwajun nabi. And so that itself shows that the word zawj is a common term between male and female. And even according to people like Atullah Nasir Makarim Shirazi, when they look into the literal meaning of the word hur, it does not necessarily refer to one gender only. And the question is that then why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more talk about female companions in many, many ayat of Quran? This is where we have to realize Allah created a man and woman. Both of them are His creation. But who is more beautiful? Oh, silence from the men here. On a comparative basis, the women were more beautiful. Allah is the creator. When He wants to describe, why would He describe this second class level? He talks more about Hurul Ain and, Khayrat and Hisan because they are, on even a physical level, more, beautiful in that sense. And that is the reason why there is more discussion about Hurul Ain or a companionship of a feminine kind in the descriptions about Jannah. Let me, narrate to you one hadith that mu'mineen and mu'minat, inshallah, both will be there. And the question comes up, what will happen? Are those who are married in this dunya will still be married there? And when we say that, many men say, oh, we are stuck with this problem. Those who have a problem here, they don't want to be same together there. Well, this question is not only from men. Even women can ask the same question. I don't want to be stuck with this man who has been, not even kind and generous to the family. And there was actually a question of similar, theme from al-Mu'mineen, Salama. Salama, the most wise of the women, from the wives of the Prophet, she asked the Prophet, بِأَبِي أَنْتَ وَأُمِّي الْمَرْأَى يَكُونُ لَهَا زَوْجَانِ فَيَمُوتُونَ وَيَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ. She says to the Prophet that may my parents be, sacrificed for you. She talks about a situation where there is a woman who had two husbands. One died, then she married somebody else, then he also died. And then all three of them go into Jannah. فَأَيِّهِمَا تَكُونَ. She will be with which of the two? Now remember, the nikah is only for dunya. In akhirah, there is an option. And this is where the Prophet says, Ya Salama, تَخَيَّرُ أَيِّهِمَا أَحْسَنُ خُلْقًا وَخَيْرُهُمَا لِأَهْلِهِ. That, O Salama, this lady will have the option of selecting the one who is ahsana khulqan, who is better of the two in the akhlaq and behavior, wa khayruhuma li ahlihi, and who was better of the two for the family. Ya Salama, inna husnul khulq dhahaba bi khayri dunya wal akhirah. You have to realize that husnul khulq, the goodness of the character, goes in dunya as well as continues in the akhirah. And so the option would be given, of course, on both sides. If they want to continue their relationship over there, there will be, the option is there for all. Salawat alayhi wa. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to the often repeated ayat, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Our response is لَا بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ آلَائِكَ رَبِّي أُكَذِّبْ. Then going back to Hurul Ain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hurun maqsuratun fil khayam. Maqsurat, very similar to the term which we looked at the ayat yesterday, that this will be huris secluded in the khayam, pavilions, which will be there for the good doers. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, and which of your Lord's bounties will you both deny? Describing further this Hurul Ain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَمْ يَتْمَثْحُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلُهُمْ وَلَا جَانٌ. Very exactly same words, which were also discussed in the passages yesterday, that whom no man or jinn would have touched before. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Then we come to the final description about Jannah, مُتَّكِئِينَ عَلَى رَفْرُفٍ خُضُرٍ وَأَبْقَرِيٍّ حِسَانٍ. This basically refers to one of the scenery in the Jannah, that the people of Jannah will be reclining on couches here. The earlier one was about the bed. This is green couches with lowly carpets underneath it. We come to the end of this discussion. The last ayat after فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. The last ayat is تَبَارَكَ اسْمَ رَبِّ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. Blessed be the name of your Lord, the Lord of glory and honor. Here the term Jalal and Ikram, we didn't talk more about it earlier when this statement came in the middle of the surah. Al-Jalal, this is power and glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it refers to what is known as Sifat Salbiyya. These are the Sifat Jalal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Means those qualities which are not to be found in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we don't only know Allah by positive attributes, we also know Him by negative. And that's why even in the madrasa, in childhood, we are taught both Sifat Subutiyya as well as Sifat Salbiyya. That He is not this, but He is this. And so Al-Jalal refers to those qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which are salbi, which are not, because of His jalal and glory and power. He does not have certain things which are known as negative. Al-Ikram is basically the other side of it. And this refers to the Sifat Subutiyya, Sifat Jamal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Normally the term preferred by the scholars is they describe it as Sifat Jalal and Sifat Jamal. Jalal refers to the Sifat Salbiyya, and Sifat Jamal refers to the Sifat Subutiyya. Another point here is in the ayat 27, where these words came, and then it ends with ayat number 78. In the earlier part it says, وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. At the end of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تَبَارَكَ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ ذِي الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. Don't be worried about this wow and yeah. That's because of the grammar. In the first sentence, it is in an active form, so it's dhu. In the second sentence, it's a passive form, and therefore it is zi. The meaning is exactly the same. There can even be a third version of his za with alif. So it depends on how the grammatical way the sentences come in. Now, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do this? In one part of the surah, He ends with this same statement, and then at the end of the surah, if you really look at the placement, it's interesting. Where He talked about the worldly blessings, right from the beginning till the time of mortality of the human beings. كُلَّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. Before that, He talked everything about this dunya and what is around it. And after that, He ends with this word that nobody will be there forever except the person of your Lord, who is the Lord of glory and honor. And then he talks about Jannat after it. Jahannam of course, but even Jannat there as the blessings. But those are the blessings of the other world. And at the end of that also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends with this term, تَبَارَكَ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ ذِي الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. Basically the message that we get is that all blessings, whether in dunya or in the akhirah, they comes from the Allah who is Rahman. And He is Dhul Jalali wal Ikram. Salawat Parao. So even repetition of the words, even in the entire context of the surah, have their own reason for it. If you read it separately, you wouldn't get the whole thing. But if you read the whole surah in one, comprehensive way, then you come to realize, okay, everything before 27 is about the worldly blessings. Everything after that deals with the blessings in the akhirah. Our sixth Imam has a very interesting hadith, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, fifth Imam. The fifth Imam says, نحن, under the tafsir of this ayat, نحن جلال الله وكرامته التي أكرم الله تبارك وتعالى العباد بطاعتنا ومحبتنا. We are the Jalal and Ikram of Allah. The Almighty has honored humans, His ibad and servants, by obedience to us and love for us. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes Himself as Zul Jalali wal Ikram, Imam says, He relates that to Himself. What does it mean? Basically, if you look at the ayat of Quran, Quran makes it wajib for the Muslims to obey the Ahlul Bayt. If you look at the ayat, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ati'u Allah wa ati'u ar-rasul wa ulil amri minkum. Of course, there will be dispute between Shias and Sunnis in the tafsir, but ulul amr refers to those who are the successors of the Prophet. And then there is another ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the Prophet that ask your people, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى, that I don't ask anything in return for my hard work except that you love my family. So this issue of ita'at and muhabbat, both are there as the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding the Prophet. Obedience to Ahlul Bayt reflects the jalal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you do not obey, then He can be, very harsh. But then the issue of love of Ahlul Bayt, this is the reflection, mazhar of the jamal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what Imam is alluding to in that sense. And essentially we believe that obedience and love to the Ahlul Bayt takes us in the same direction as obedience and love towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet. We know that it is through the Ahlul Bayt, through Ali we reach to Rasul, and through Rasul we reach to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The last comment about the surah. The surah began with the unique name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ar-Rahman. Nobody else is allowed to use that name. And the surah ends with the name of Allah again, Tabaraka isma rabbika dhil jalali wal ikram. So even in the wordings at the beginning of the surah and at the end of the surah, there is a connection there. And so don't, when you look at the surah, sometimes they might be even lengthy, but it's not that they are disjointed and irrelevant to one another. There is a connection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins this surah with His name and ends this surah with His names in a different form. Tabaraka isma rabbika dhul jalali wal ikram. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this brief review of Surah Rahman, and may He include us among those who can be called Ibadur Rahman in the words of the Quran, and those who truly try to implement the teachings of the Quran in their day-to-day lives according to the guidance of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. May He accept our amal for this month and increase our tawfiqat for the remainder of the days of this holy month of Ramadan. We have alhamdulillah concluded with the Tafsir of Surah Rahman. I think we have a quiz today. Can I get a copy? Very quick, just to see how much you have retained. What is the name? It shouldn't be plurals, but what is the name Hasanain mean? It's relevant to the evening that we have. Huh? Yeah, but literal meaning it will be two Hassans. You know, in English sometimes we use, they have this tradition, if the father wants to name his own son by his own name, the difference is junior and senior. Exactly the same thing happening here, Hassan or Hussein. The meaning of Hussein is exactly as Hassan, only it means younger Hassan. And so when you see the name Hassanain, this is the dual form of it, where Hassan and Hussein both have been included. And it's interesting that in the last discussion, we talked about Husnul Khulq. You know, remember Imam Hassan in that sense. He was the symbol of Husnul Khulq, the good character, that even the enemies, in spite of doing all bad things to him, even when it comes to their funeral, they showed up. And Imam Hassan actually looked at Marwan and said, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be coming to funeral of my brother." And that is where Marwan points towards the mountain outside Medina and says, your brother had the patience and forbearance stronger than that mountain outside Medina. And it's in recognition of that an enemy also shows up in the janazah. And so remember that, Husn Khulq is the basis of our salvation in the dunya as well as in the hereafter. Which of these three names for persons is incorrect? Abdullah is okay, Rahim is okay, Rahman. Rahman is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many times was the dead palms mentioned in Surah Rahman? One? No. Not even three times? Twice. Number 4, if Ahmad starts his travel after Zuhr, is his fast of that day valid? After Zuhr, traveling is okay. But if before Zuhr, would have been a problem. Any time between Fajr and Zuhr, if you travel, your fast of that day would not be valid. Even if you go and come back. Sometimes people say, okay, I'll come back, before Zohar, but you already traveled after Fajr, and so that day's roza is gone. Number 5, what is the correct translation of Jannatan? 2 Jannats? 2 gardens. The word Jannat means garden. Anyway, if we have time, we'll talk about it later on. The word Jannat, Jannat, Jinnat, and Junnah. Same word, different signs have 3 different meanings. Number 6, can an ayat of Quran consist of 1 word only? This should be easy. Mudahammatan, yesterday we looked at it. Okay, which fruit has been named by the Prophet as the chief of all fruits? C. Number 8, brushing the teeth while fasting makes the fast. Is it okay? It is okay. We hear the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam that, when he was cold for 30 days and then he brushed his teeth and he went again. Allah said, stay 10 more days. And the narration says that Allah told Musa that I like the smell of a person who is fasting. So this is where people have this understanding that we shouldn't be brushing when we are fasting. Well, Allah loves that smell, but not the other people around. So if you're going there, yeah, don't worry about it. But the only thing is you have to make sure nothing goes in. Otherwise, the fast would be batil. Number 9, the longest ayat of the Quran is in the longest surah, from Surah Baqarah. What is the meaning? Ala'i? Bounties? What about favors? And what about blessings? Each three of them are valid. How many times this word ala'i came in Surah Rahman? 31 times. Salawat.